Welcome to Conspiracist.
Great to be here.
Today we're doing a deep dive into a really fascinating hypothesis. The idea that governments, or maybe other powerful groups, have intentionally concealed evidence of lost civilizations.
It's a concept that comes up a lot, especially when you discuss certain archaeological finds or maybe phenomena that don't have easy explanations.
Exactly. It suggests this deliberate effort, almost a conspiracy, to suppress alternative views of our past.
And we've gathered quite a range of sources that touch on this. They cover specific sites, certain artifacts, but also, the broader debates around what some call pseudo-archaeology and how unconventional theories are received.
Right. And our mission here, just to be clear up front, is to look objectively at the claims and the reasoning presented in these materials. We want to focus on the evidence, the interpretations offered.
Without taking sides or just dismissing things out of hand. It's about understanding the contours of the hypothesis itself.
So maybe a good place to start is why? Why is this idea of lost civilizations, and especially their concealment, so appealing?
Well, our sources point towards something pretty fundamental, I think. A very human desire to understand where we come from, our origins.
Sure, that makes sense.
And tied to that is this fascination with the possibility that ancient peoples might have possessed advanced knowledge, maybe technology. That's been forgotten.
It's inherently compelling, isn't it? The idea of hidden chapters in history, maybe holding secrets we haven't rediscovered.
Definitely. And it's not just academic curiosity either. You mentioned pop culture earlier.
Oh, absolutely. Think about movies, books, even some documentaries. Lost civilizations are everywhere. Atlantis, El Dorado.
They really are. And that constant presence in media can maybe blur the lines a bit for some people between, let's say, established historical fact and more speculative fiction.
It fuels the imagination, which isn't necessarily bad, but it can complicate things.
It can. And beyond just the inherent coolness factor, broader research into conspiracy theories in general suggests these kinds of narratives can tap into deeper psychological needs.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. What kinds of needs are we talking about?
Well, research suggests that believing in a conspiracy theory can offer explanations, sometimes seemingly neat explanations, for really big or confusing events. It can satisfy that desire for understanding, for certainty.
Like finding a hidden pattern in chaos?
Sort of, yeah, and possibly a need for control or feeling like you have access to special hidden knowledge. It can also relate to social needs, like maintaining a positive view of yourself or your group against, say, a perceived establishment that's hiding the truth.
So the idea of a powerful ancient civilization being deliberately hidden could fit right into that framework. It offers an explanation, a sense of uncovering something important.
Precisely. It potentially ticks a lot of those boxes.
Okay, so with that background on the appeal, let's turn to some of the specific cases where this concealment idea often surfaces. The Antikythera mechanism is one that comes up frequently.
Ah, yes, the mechanism. Found in that shipwreck off the Greek coast.
Right. And its complexity, for its time, it's astonishing. Gears, calculations. It's led to speculation, hasn't it? About whether ancient Greek tech could really have produced it alone. Some even suggest, alien influence in fringe theories.
It has spurred a lot of discussion, but it's important to clarify, I think, what the mainstream scientific and historical view is.
Please do.
Overwhelmingly, it's recognized as a remarkable testament to ancient Greek ingenuity. It shows an incredibly sophisticated understanding of astronomy, of mechanics, of mathematics for that period.
So the surprise isn't necessarily that it exists, but rather how advanced the Greeks were.
Exactly. While you do get those fringe theories about external help, the dominant interpretation is that this represents a pinnacle of human achievement within that specific context. Research now focuses more on deciphering exactly what it calculated, the full extent of the knowledge it represents.
Not so much on some kind of cover-up of its origins beyond the Greeks themselves.
Generally, no. The evidence points strongly towards it being a product of Hellenistic science and engineering. The idea that acknowledging this is somehow reluctant, that doesn't really square with how it's studied and celebrated in academic circles.
Okay, that's a helpful clarification. What about another big one? Atlantis.
Ah, Atlantis, the classics.
It originates with Plato, right? But it's taken on a life of its own. People are still looking for it, suggesting locations all over the place.
They are. Despite, as you alluded to, a lack of solid geological evidence for, say, a whole continent sinking in the Atlantic where Plato vaguely placed it.
And some theories try to connect Atlantis to known ancient cultures, like the Maya or the Aztecs. What's the thinking there? A shared, but maybe suppressed, ancient global civilization.
That linkage, especially connecting Atlantis to Mesoamerican cultures, really took off in the 19th century with writers like Ignatius Donnelly.
Yeah.
And, looking back, it's hard to separate some of those ideas from the colonial perspectives of the time, attributing the impressive achievements of the Maya or Aztecs to some external, possibly European-derived Atlantean source. Well, it fits certain biases.
Right. It sort of explained away indigenous achievements by crediting outsiders.
That was certainly an element for some proponents, but beyond that, the core story Plato told is just incredibly powerful. A technologically advanced, morally complex society that meets a catastrophic end. It's a narrative with enduring appeal.
But many scholars view Plato's story differently, don't they?
Yes, a very significant body of thought interprets Atlantis not as literal history, but as a philosophical allegory. A thought experiment created by Plato to explore ideas about ideal states, power, corruption, divine justice, using this fictional city as his vehicle.
So less a lost history and more a literary device.
That's a major interpretation, yes. Which, of course, doesn't require a sunken landmass or a government conspiracy to hide it.
Let's shift focus a bit geographically. Doggerland. This is the area now under the North Sea, right?
Yeah. Correct. It was dry land during the last ice age and for some time after, connecting Britain to mainland Europe.
And there's speculation about a lost civilization there, too, sometimes linked to claims of advanced knowledge in other unconnected ancient cultures.
There's speculation, but the crucial distinction here is between inhabited land and advanced lost civilization being concealed.
Okay. What's the evidence actually show?
Archaeology and geology have confirmed Doggerland was inhabited. We have finds tools, animal bones, footprints, sometimes consistent with Mesolithic hunter-gatherer groups. People definitely lived there.
But not necessarily building pyramids or using high technology.
Exactly. The evidence points to the kind of Mesolithic cultures we know existed in Northern Europe at that time. The idea of an advanced civilization there whose existence is being hidden lacks specific archaeological backing from Doggerland itself.
And the claims about advanced knowledge elsewhere don't directly prove anything about Doggerland specifically.
Right. You need evidence from the site. And we understand why Doggerland is underwater, melting glaciers, rising sea levels, standard, well-documented geological processes. No conspiracy needed.
Okay. How about the Yonaguni Monument off the coast of Japan? That underwater structure.
Another fascinating case, definitely. And one where there is genuine debate.
About whether it's natural or man-made, right?
Precisely. It has these very striking features, sharp angles, terraces, step-like formations that look artificial to some observers. They argue it could be a submerged city or temple complex from a very ancient, unknown culture.
But there's a counter-argument.
Yes, a strong one from many geologists. They argue that the structure is sandstone, a rock type known to fracture along straight plains due to natural tectonic stress and erosion patterns, especially in an area with strong currents like that one.
So nature mimicking architecture, potentially.
Potentially. And a key point in archaeology is context and associated finds. Are there tools, pottery, inscriptions directly linked to the structure in a way that confirms human modification?
And in Yonaguni's case?
The evidence for associated human-made artifacts definitively linked to the structure's creation or use is relatively scarce or debated. This makes it harder to rule out the natural formation hypothesis, and certainly harder to confirm a deliberately hidden civilization based solely on the structure itself.
It highlights the challenges of underwater archaeology, definitely.
Immensely so. Interpretation is difficult.
Let's talk about technology claims. Sometimes you hear about impossibly precise drilling or stone cutting in ancient sites, like with stone cores found in Egypt. The argument being, this must be evidence of lost high technology.
Yes, that's a common trope in alternative history circles, pointing to features like hollow cores or highly polished surfaces as evidence beyond ancient capabilities.
And what does closer investigation show? Is mainstream science overlooking something, or maybe even suppressing it?
Well, extensive experimental archaeology has actually tackled this directly. Researchers have replicated many of these features, the drilling, the polishing, even the slight taperings sometimes seen in drill cores.
Using ancient methods.
Yes, using techniques and materials known to have been available, like copper tools aided by abrasive sand slurry or patient polishing with natural abrasives. It turns out you can achieve remarkable precision with relatively simple, albeit labor-intensive, methods.
So the claim of impossible precision might be overstated.
The evidence suggests so. Demonstrations show these things were achievable. So the persistence of the lost high-tech claim in the face of this experimental evidence starts to look less like uncovering a conspiracy and perhaps more like promoting a narrative despite counter-evidence.
Interesting. What about Göbekli Tepe in Turkey? It's incredibly old, pushing back dates for monumental construction.
It really is a groundbreaking site, no question, around 11,500 years old.
And its age and complexity have led some to see it as proof of a much earlier, advanced, lost civilization, right? Some even call it the original Eden.
Those interpretations exist, yes. Its discovery certainly challenged previous assumptions about when hunter-gatherers started building large, complex structures.
So is mainstream archaeology downplaying these alternative ideas, hiding something?
Mainstream interpretation focuses on understanding it within the context of early Neolithic societies, perhaps as a central ritual site, a place for communal gatherings, feasting, built by sophisticated hunter-gatherers, but not necessarily a lost civilization in the Atlantis sense.
But why do the Eden-type theories persist? Is information being suppressed?
I think it's less about active suppression and more about how scientific information gets disseminated. Peer-reviewed archaeological research, presenting detailed analysis and comparative studies, might not be as easily accessible or dramatically packaged as, say, a TV special proposing its Eden.
So it's more about the nature of academic publishing versus popular media.
Largely, yes. The Eden idea is certainly intriguing, but it lacks broad support within the archaeological community compared to interpretations grounded more directly in the material evidence and what we know about Neolithic development. Research and debate are ongoing, but not necessarily being hidden.
Let's touch on the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. This is the idea that a comet or asteroid impact about 12,900 years ago caused sudden climate change. It's been controversial.
Extremely controversial, yes. It proposed a catastrophic event that could have had massive implications for human societies and the environment at the time.
Could the resistance and debate around this theory be seen by some as an attempt to suppress evidence of a catastrophe that might perhaps align with lost civilization narratives or ancient flood myths?
It's definitely been perceived that way by some proponents of the hypothesis. They might see the intense scrutiny and the challenges in replicating some of the initial evidence like nanodiamonds or specific chemical signatures as unfair resistance or premature rejection.
But scrutiny is part of science, right?
Absolutely. It's fundamental. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and a hypothesis proposing a global catastrophe needs very robust, consistent, and verifiable proof. The scientific process involves challenge, debate, attempts at replication.
So the back and forth might just be science working as intended, rather than a cover-up.
That's the standard interpretation of the process. The hypothesis hasn't been universally accepted because the evidence is still debated and subject to ongoing investigation and reevaluation. New papers come out, arguing for and against. It's an active research area, not a closed book being hidden away.
The connection to flood myths is interesting, though.
It is, from a mythological perspective. But linking ancient myths directly to a specific, debated geological event requires careful handling and isn't direct proof of the impact itself, let alone its concealment.
Finally, what about those purely mythical lost continents like Mu or Lemuria? Where do they fit in? Are these presented as real places being covered up?
Mu and Lemuria really emerged from earlier scientific eras, before our modern understanding of geology and biology was fully formed.
How so?
Well, Lemuria, for instance, was initially proposed in the 19th century as a hypothetical land bridge across the Indian Ocean to explain why lemurs were found in Madagascar in India, but not Africa or the Middle East.
Before plate tectonics provided a better explanation for species distribution.
Exactly. Once plate tectonics became established, the need for a physical land bridge like Lemuria vanished. It became obsolete scientifically. Mu was more the creation of writers like James Churchward, based on interpretations of certain texts and artifacts, proposing this huge Pacific motherland destroyed in a cataclysm.
So these weren't based on discoveries that were then hidden, but more on outdated or speculative ideas.
Largely, yes. They occupy a space more in mythology and the history of esoteric thought than in geology or archaeology. While we do know about real submerged landmasses like parts of the Mascarene Plateau related to the old Lemuria idea, their existence and submergence are explained by standard geological processes, not hidden advanced civilizations.
Okay, so considering all these examples, Antikythera, Atlantis, Doggerland, Yonaguni, the tech claims, Göbekli Tepe, Younger Dryas, Mu, what role does mainstream science and archaeology play in this whole dynamic? Proponents of alternative views often paint them as rigid, dismissive.
Well, mainstream science operates on the scientific method. That means prioritizing evidence, testable hypotheses, peer review, building on established knowledge. It inherently leads to skepticism towards claims that lack strong, verifiable proof or contradict well-supported frameworks.
Which can seem like dismissiveness to those proposing radical new ideas.
It can be perceived that way, sure. There's also a genuine concern within archaeology about what's termed pseudo-archaeology.
What does that entail?
It generally refers to interpretations of the past that ignore or distort archaeological evidence, often promoting sensational claims, sometimes tied to nationalism, racism, or other ideologies, and presented as archaeology without adhering to its methods and ethics.
So the concern is about misrepresenting the past and potentially misleading the public.
Yes. And while some alternative history might be harmless fun, there can be instances where pseudo-archaeological claims are used to support quite harmful agendas. Distinguishing between legitimate questioning of established views and the promotion of baseless or harmful ideas can be tricky sometimes.
And the peer review process, often criticized by outsiders, is meant to be a filter for quality and validity.
That's its purpose, yes. To ensure that published research meets certain standards of evidence, methodology, and logical reasoning. It's not perfect, but it's a core part of how scientific knowledge is vetted and built upon. It's meant to ensure rigor, not necessarily to stifle all unconventional thought, though the line can be debated.
So this brings us back to the core hypothesis of concealment. If governments or powerful groups are hiding evidence of lost civilizations, why would they? What's the alleged motivation? Our sources don't spell it out explicitly, but there are implications.
The underlying suggestion is usually about maintaining control. Control over the historical narrative, perhaps.
How so?
Well, the idea might be that revealing, say, a vastly older, highly advanced civilization could destabilize current religious beliefs, national identities, or scientific paradigms. It could challenge established power structures if history isn't what we thought it was.
Or maybe suppress knowledge technology. Perhaps that could disrupt the current economic or political order.
That's another common thread in these theories, suppressing free energy from Atlantis or ancient technologies that could render current industries obsolete.
But again, the concrete proof of this deliberate, coordinated, global suppression. It's generally lacking in the sources we looked at.
Verifiable evidence of that kind of active, widespread concealment is typically absent. An alternative explanation from the mainstream perspective is simply that the reason we don't have definitive proof of these specific kinds of advanced lost civilizations is because, well, either they didn't exist in the way they're imagined, or we genuinely haven't found unambiguous evidence yet through rigorous archaeological work.
Absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence, but it's also not positive proof of concealment.
Precisely. The burden of proof lies with the claim being made.
So we've journeyed through quite a bit here: the appeal of these ideas, specific archaeological sites and artifacts often cited, the counter-arguments from mainstream science, the role of pseudo-archaeology, and the alleged motives for concealment.
It really highlights a complex interplay, doesn't it? Intriguing discoveries, genuinely puzzling anomalies sometimes, alongside speculative interpretations, and the rigorous, sometimes slow process of scientific investigation.
What really stands out, I think, is just how deeply fascinated we are as humans with our past, with uncovering its mysteries. We use so many different tools and approaches to try and understand it.
Absolutely. From careful excavation and analysis of pottery shards to these grand, imaginative reconstructions of forgotten worlds, that quest to know where we came from continues to drive so much exploration and clearly a lot of debate.
And this really leads to a final thought, a question perhaps for you listening. Considering the evidence, the arguments, the different perspectives we've touched on, where do you draw the line?
Where is the boundary between legitimate, critical inquiry into the past, questioning assumptions, exploring anomalies, and claims that perhaps lack sufficient grounding in evidence?
And what might be the potential consequences for society of leaning too far towards either extreme, either being too rigidly dismissive of new ideas, or too quick to accept claims without solid proof?
It's something worth reflecting on.
Thanks for listening to Conspiracist.